So we have a screenshot that was sent in, kind of illustrating some entry points here with the indicators on the chart. And then also we have a description. All right, so the first thing to note is, the signals are going to be with the trending direction of the amaATRTrailingStop indicator. So we can see that basically, right, the ATR trailing stop looks very similar to the super trend that most people are familiar with. So, right, so that's the dark red line here and the green line there, right? So the signals are going to be with the direction of the ATR trailing stop. We do have some custom settings here. So ATR period and a multiplier there. All right, the next thing, next condition is we're going to monitor price here. So for a short, it's going to be the high price, right? So we're looking for the high of the bar to pull back to basically within 3 ticks. So it can be 3 ticks below the EMA 30. So we can see that's either dark blue or black line here is the EMA 30. So price needs to get at least within 3 ticks underneath the EMA and not go past the ATR trailing stop line there. Yeah, it could be that if the high of the bar goes past the ATR trailing stop indicator, that the indicator might flip, but maybe not. I don't know. Yeah, let's see what else here. Okay, yeah, so we also need price to be below the most recent swing high. All right, so yeah, here we go. So we have the swings, highs, lows indicator on here. So we need to make sure that there's a swing high above where price is. And then this last part here, yeah, so this is a very common mistake that people make. So this says only signal when position is flat. So that is not possible with NinjaTrader, right? So there's a technical issue here. Yeah, so the technical issue is that BloodHound is an indicator, and indicators cannot tell if you are flat. So indicators cannot communicate with orders. Only a strategy can communicate with an order, right? So only a strategy knows whether your position is flat or if you're long or if you're short, right? So Blackbird will never know if Raven or Blackbird, BloodHound will never know if Raven or Blackbird, right, the two strategies, or even if you have a custom strategy built using BloodHound, BloodHound will never know that whether your position is flat or not, because indicators just don't have that information, or indicators can't get that information from NinjaTrader, unfortunately. So, yeah, so this is not possible. But the good news, though, is that both of our strategies, both Raven and Blackbird, are designed specifically to only open a position when they are flat, right? So in other words, like in this screenshot, right, you can see that we have arrows pointing out 5 different signals, right? So if the first signal opens a position and that, right, and the trade is still open, so in other words, you're not flat, all right, you have a short position on, and if another signal comes in, our Raven and Blackbird will ignore those additional signals. So they're not going to keep adding more positions on if more trade signals come in, right? They're just specifically designed to adhere to basically this common rule that most traders have, which is, basically only open one position at a time, right? So you don't have to worry about multiple trade signals opening multiple positions at the same time, right? So the strategies are always going to wait until your position is flat before opening another position on the next trade signal that comes in. All right. Well, with that, let's now we kind of understand the three rules here. So we just got three conditions here. So let's start building. All right. Let's minimize that. So I have the swings, highs, and lows indicator on my chart there. The green and red hash lines. So there's the ATR trailing stop, the blue dots, and then the EMA 30, the red line there. So let's open up Blackbird up top here. And first thing I want to do is provide a file name there. So I'm going to hit the change button. And all right. Wow, this month is already 2/3 over. Man, it's going quickly. All right, so there's today's date. Okay, so there's our file name that we're going to save all of our work under. All right, so I'm going to switch over to the logic tab here. All right, and then create a new logic template like so. All right, there you go, something like that. So basically, yeah, I guess you could call this an EMA kind of pullback system. And then it's got a couple of filters, right? A couple of trend filters. So we're using swing points, right? Swing points as a trend, or as a directional filter, and obviously the ATR trailing stop as a trend filter as well. There, let's get the plurals in there. All right. So let's start with some of the easy ones here. Which, the first one's a pretty easy one here. Just looking at the trailing stop indicator. Seeing what side of the market that the trailing stop indicator is on. So to do that, we're going to do a comparison. All right. So basically, the comparison solver is kind of one of the workhorses here. Out of all the solvers, it's probably one of the main workhorses here, because what are we doing on charts? We're comparing whether one piece of data is above another piece of data, right? So in this case, we're checking to see, is price above or below our ATR trailing stop indicator, right? So let's give this a name here. So, all right, so there's a name for that. So basically we are just comparing price to the ATR trailing stop. So for input A, we're going to change the type to price, right? So we'll just look at the closing price for this. And then input B, that will be our ATR trailing stop indicator. So this indicator is from Lizard Indicators, right? So these AMA indicators come from Lizard Indicators. And so there's the ATR trailing stop, right? So if you need to get a copy of these AMA indicators, you can go to lizardindicators.com, and they do require a one-time membership fee. And then after that, there's all of these free indicators, free with a membership. So it's exactly like Futures.io. So you can find some of these indicators on Futures.io. And again, Futures.io requires a membership fee as well if you want to download indicators off of their website. So I'm pretty sure this ATR trailing stop is also available on Futures.io as well. So if you do have a paid Futures.io membership, then you could probably just download it from there. So I guess just keep in mind though that let's see here. Keep in mind, I am using version 1.4. All right. So yeah, so this was updated 2 years ago. All right. Okay, so anyways, let's get back here. So we need to change the multiplier to 5.5 and the ATR period, range period. Yeah, I think the range period is the ATR period. Triangle font size. Yeah, it must be there. So let's see, what are we using here? 13. All right, so we're using an ATR range period of 13, and the multiplier, we changed that to 5.5 per the question that was emailed in there. Okay, next thing is make sure we got the correct plot selected. So we'll just use the stop dots here. That'll be good enough. And there we have it. So we have a long output, right? If the ATR trailing stop is trailing long, and let's scroll back. There we go. And so if the indicator is in a short trend mode, right, then we'll get a short output from our solver. All right, so there's the easy one. Let's do the second easy one here, which is comparing price to the swing high or low, right? So let's see. Yeah, so we just need to make sure that for a short, right? Remember, we're building a short signal here. So for a short, we need price to be below a swing high, right? And for a long, price needs to be above a swing low, right? So we can see here that in this area, actually, well, let's see here. Yeah, so it stopped right about there. So in this area, price is both below a swing high and above a swing low, right? So we have the swing low down here and a swing low down here, right? So we're going to have areas where price is both below a swing high and above a swing low. All right, same over here, right? So there's a few bars over here that are the same. And then occasionally we'll have an area like these bars, right? So these bars are above the swing high, but they're above the swing high, right? So no short, and they're only above the swing low. Right? So, okay, so again, we're comparing price to an indicator. So that will be another comparison to see if price is above or below our indicator. So let's plug that in. All right, so let's give this a name here. Price to the swing high or low. There we go. Price to the swing high or swing low. All right, so again, input A, we'll change this to price. And, so this, you kind of have to decide, is the close important, or, should we look at the high of the bar or the low of the bar and make sure that the high of the bar didn't break above the swing high, or make sure that the low of the bar didn't break below the swing low, right? So those are some detailed questions you got to ask yourself here. So, but I'm just going to leave it at the closing price. And if we look at the screenshot here, well, price is so far away from the swing high. Like this first signal here, the swing high is way up here. So, Oh, and actually, you know what? Okay, you know what? I'm going to have to make some adjustments here. So, yeah, I made some minor adjustments here to this. So, actually, this person. Let's see. Let me find the question again. Corinne. All right, yeah, so this question came from Corinne. And actually, Corinne is using NinjaTrader's swings indicator. Okay, I'm sorry. I was assuming that the swings, highs, lows was being used for this, but no, actually, Corinne is using the swings indicator. So, all right, so let's do a quick replacement here. And let's correct. Yeah, let's correct this as well. There we go. All right, so it's a swings indicator with a strength of 5. There. Okay. I'm glad I was looking at the screenshot really closely, or otherwise I never would have noticed that. All right, so let me put the swings indicator on here. Well, actually, it's the swing indicator. And all right, so it's, yeah, the default strength of 5. There we have it. So, all right, put that on the chart. Okay, there we go. So now we have the swings indicator on there. All right. So one thing to note about the swings indicator is it back paints. All right. So even though you see the dots going all the way to the swing high, the swings indicator back paints. So in real time, you're not going to get the same results in real time as you will see historically because that indicator back paints. All right, guys, so just be mindful of that, right? So with a setting of 5, basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think it's the first 5, the swing is not known yet. So 5 bars have to go by before that NinjaTrader swing indicator can actually detect the swing point. So let's take a look at our screenshot here. Yeah, so it looks like all the arrows, the signals that are being pointed out by the arrows here, we can see that the swing indicator has been plotting for at least 5 bars. So everything here should work out just fine. So, all right, let's get rid of that. Let's see, I don't need that on there. All right, so now that I've gotten the correct indicator here, all right, let's get BloodHound back open. Go back to our logic tab and click on our solver and go into input B, and we're going to use the NinjaTrader swing indicator. All right, there we go. Strength of 5. And so now we need to figure out what plots we need to use. So we need price to be below the most recent swing high. And that's for a short trade setup, right? So we're going to use the swing high for shorts. And so that means we must be using the swing lows for longs, right? So if we just simply reverse things. So there we go. Swing high is used for generating short signals. Swing low is being used for long signals. All right. So let's take a look here. All right. So you'll notice down here, right, we have a couple of bars with some short outputs, right? So basically these bars here, right, have a short output. And if you look, right, we do have, the swing indicator plotting here. But since the first 5 bars are back painted, right, that means the swing indicator hasn't detected this swing high yet. You have to wait until you get to the 5th bar, right? So, and there we go. Now we have the short. So also want to point out, so now that we have a swing high detected by the swing indicator, and we have a swing low down here, right? We're getting both a long and a short output. So because price is in between a swing high and a swing low. There we go. So I guess the main point of this explanation here is it's critical that you understand how your indicators work, right? So if you're using, so when you decide to use an indicator, you definitely need to understand how your indicator is working, so that way you understand if there's going to be differences between seeing things historically versus seeing things running live, right? So there are definitely a lot of indicators out there that look differently historically than how they behave when running in a live market situation. All right, so that is the third rule, and we have the first kind of condition here, first rule, first condition. So now the middle one, so this one will be a little more complex here. So we need to make sure that price gets within 3 ticks of our EMA 30, or it can go higher for a short, but it still needs to remain below the amaATR trailing. So actually, yeah, you know what? Reading this a little closer, right? We're actually using the high price of the bar, for generating a short signal here. So we also want to compare the high price of the bar to the ATR trailing stop. So let's go back to our first solver here, right? That's using the ATR trailing. And so instead of using the closing price, let's plug in, let's set them to the high and the low prices here, right? So for a short, we're using the high of the bar. Actually, yes. Yeah, just pausing for a moment to think this through. And yeah, this should work fine. Let me see if I can find some examples. Here we go. Perfect. So right here, so on the bar where the ATR trailing stop is going to flip, most of the time, or actually probably all the time here, we can see that we're going to have a bar where there's no longer short because the high of the bar is above the ATR trailing, so therefore it does not meet this second condition here, or this second rule. So let's scroll back a little further. Here we go. Even in some situations like this, we can see the high of the bar, right, went above the ATR trailing, and so there you go. That violates the second rule here, so it would disqualify a signal there. And here we go. So we have a couple more bars here where the low broke below the ATR trailing stop. So there you go, no output. Okay, so good. So there we go. So we made this little adjustment to actually use the high and low prices for this. Okay, so now let's start comparing the high to the EMA 30. So we're going to need some more comparison solvers here. All right, so we're looking at the high or the low price, and we want it to be within 3 ticks of the EMA 30. All right, input A, again, that will be price. And so for a short, we are using the high price. And so for a long, we're using the low price. All right, so let's put in our 3 tick difference here, like so. And then input B, that's going to be the EMA 30. So let's put that in. There we go, EMA. Let's change it to a 30 period. There we go. And so now we need to check our outputs here. So we want to use the A equals B within. Here's a little note here. Sometimes this will say within 0 ticks, even though we set our difference to 3 ticks. So if the text does not update, just simply click off and then click back onto the solver, and then that forces the text to update. So this only happens on some computers, and nobody knows why, but it does. All right, so since we're building a short signal here, since we have the instructions, let's work on the short output first. So we want this, so the high price can be within 3 ticks below the EMA or higher. So we're going to turn off these outputs here. So in other words, A can be greater than B, or in other words, A can be higher than B, right? And what is A? A is the high price. So the high price can be higher than our EMA 30. So we can set these on and that on, right? And so this A equals B within 3 ticks. Well, what does within 3 ticks means? Well, that means you can be 3 ticks below or 3 ticks above, right, our EMA 30. So this A equals B within 3 ticks has included, by the definition, that includes, 3 ticks below the EMA. So it's actually 3 ticks below and 3 ticks above the EMA 30. Right. Okay, so now that we have the short outputs set up correctly, we just simply need to reverse the outputs for the long outputs. Just reverse them. So we'll set that to 1, set that to 1, set A equals B to 1, and then turn the others off. Right? So if you look at the outputs here, they're simply mirrored. And this is typically what you do, I'd say 99% of the time, is your outputs are typically mirrored like this. So once you figure out one side, then you can simply just take the other side and just mirror it. All right, so that does it, I believe, for our second rule here. So the second part here, where price still needs to be below the ATR trailing stop, well, that actually is incorporated, remember, in our first, that's incorporated into our first solver here, this one up here. So if we scroll way back, so there we go. There's that example I pointed out earlier, where if the high goes above, right, the ATR trailing stop, then there's no output there. So we only needed to create a solver to compare the high to the EMA 30. So all right, and let's switch these around like so. There we go. So we'll just put these in order of the instructions here, like so. And then last step is grab an AND node, connect everything in, connect it all up, and check our results. All right, and let's see, one other thing I noted is this is a range chart. Let's see here. It's a 5 range chart. All right, so 5 range chart. Let's see, I'm on the NQ, so I'll make it a 4 range chart. All right, so our ATR trailing stop, right, is in a uptrend. And let's see, and so basically, yeah, whenever price, right, gets within 3 ticks of the EMA 30, we're going to start generating a long output. Yeah, and if the high price, or let's see, actually, no, this is a long, so this would be the low price. So when the low of the bar gets within 3 ticks of the ATR trailing, then we'll start generating a long output. And even if the low price, right, goes below the EMA 30, it's going to generate a long. All right, so there you go. So this is going to start generating, yeah, a bunch of signals here, just simply because of the rules there. So, and let's take a look here. All right, yeah, actually I'd say this falls in line with the screenshot. So there we go. So we do have, yeah, a bunch of arrows here where price is staying really close to the EMA 30. So I guess this is what is to be expected. Yeah, to see a bunch of continuous signals there. Yeah. Now, if you wanted to clean this up a little bit so that you get a nice clean kind of discrete signal, and what we can do, let's get back over here. What we can do is add a signal blocker to this. And the first thing we need to do is kind of figure out, how many bars do we need to block the signal for? So my guess is probably 50 bars. Looks like it's going to be enough. All right, there we go, like so. Yeah. Oh, but then also, if we look at the raw signals here, right, you'll notice that sometimes there might be a gap, well, there are some gaps in between every once in a while. So maybe you might want these gaps where there's no signal to basically reset the signal blocker. So if we wanted to do that, let's see, input, there we go, input, no signal. Turn that one on. Let's see, we're not using the reset signal, so we'll turn that off. Yeah, and there we go. So now we'll see the signal on the first bar here. And if there's a gap, then another signal will come through. So let's kind of mark these here, right? So we got those 3 bars have a signal, right? Those 3 bars have a signal. There. So if we mark all the bars, right, that have a signal on them, and then if we take a look at the signal blocker, now we can see only the first bar for every group of signals, right? Only the first bar now has the signal on it, right? So there you go. So there's 2 ways you can look at this. Just look at the raw signals, or you can kind of look at the cleaned up version of the signals there. Okay, so that basically does it for the trade setups for the signals. And tomorrow there are a bunch of Blackbird related questions here, so we will pick this up tomorrow and answer these Blackbird related questions in tomorrow's workshop.